Unfortunately, despite all our progress against ISIL on the battlefield and in the financial realm, our efforts have not reduced the group's terrorism capability and global reach. The resources needed for terrorism are very modest, and the group would have to suffer even heavier losses on territory, manpower, and money for its terrorist capacity to decline significantly.
And welcome back to Newsmax Prime. That was CIA Director John Brennan appearing in front of the Senate Select Intelligence Committee on the CIA's progress on fighting groups like ISIS. As you just heard, he gave a pretty bleak assessment. And that's where we'd like to welcome back our panel. Rejoining us again, we have Amy Kramer, Dr. Zuhdi Jasser, and Ellis Hennigan. Thank you both. Thank you all, actually, for sticking around here. Ellis, let's start with you. What's your reaction to hearing that? You know, we hear the president talk about significant progress, but that's not what we're hearing from CIA Director John Brennan.
Well, let me see if I can pull our other guests back from the edge of panic here a second, Miranda. A terrible thing happened when these 50 people were shot to death by a high-powered rifle in Orlando. Terrible thing, and we obviously need to do something about it. But as I mentioned earlier, 12,000 people a year we are losing to gun violence, murdered by gun violence. And it seems to me that it's a mistake to give up our most cherished ideals and values as a nation. The entire nation was built on immigration to try and throw up a huge wall around America and not let any immigrants in because of the panic surrounding one tragic incident, while completely ignoring, refusing to even confront a murder rate, a gunfire murder rate that is 25 times that of other countries. We're not 25 times worse than other countries. There's something different here, and it's the ready access to guns. Why can we not talk about that?
Dr. Jasser, I can see you nodding your head right there. As I mentioned earlier, you are a refugee yourself here, and you are in favor of an immigration ban.
Yeah, I mean, I was born a few months after my parents escaped Syria in 1966. So, yeah, I'm the byproduct of refugees. This country gave them freedom, and I'm certainly a proponent that, yes, I believe we would lose the war if we ultimately change what America means. However, having said that, we are currently completely naked when it comes to the threat of Islamism, and that's where we need to get this right. And I'm sorry, you know, I understand what Ellis is saying, but you don't fix gun violence by just controlling the guns. There's psychiatric issues, we have had so many other opportunities for America to weigh in on all of the pathologies that create the violence issue when it comes to crime. Right now, after San Bernardino, Chattanooga, Fort Hood, and now Orlando, Paris and Belgium, this is a much different problem. On the heels today, Ellis, of a letter signed by 50 State Department people from the dovish State Department that are saying that our Syria policy is so pathological, they're asking us to bomb Assad. That's the only way to get rid of ISIS, is to end both Assad and ISIS. This is a huge problem in Middle Eastern foreign policy, and when it comes to domestically, we are allowing the Muslim Brotherhood groups in America to guide foreign policy so that we can't even talk about Islamism and the jihadist threat. We're so afraid for political correctness that we can't get it correct on where Islam is in the time in history to counter theocracy. And the theocrats on the planet are our enemies, and the liberal Muslims are our allies. And until we figure that out, we should not let refugees in.
We want to welcome in now Navin from Henderson, Nevada. What is your question or comment for our panel tonight?
Oh, yes. I have a question for Mr. Hennigan. When has a war of hearts and mind ever been won, ever in history, in the history of this world? I've had people in my own family that were killed by fundamentalists in India, okay? And I'm telling you right now, if we don't do something about this threat, it's going to get a lot worse. I just have a question for him. But here's the other question. 15 years we've been fighting this war since 9/11. When is this hearts and minds war supposed to work? It hasn't worked for thousands of years battling Islam. It didn't work with the Christians, didn't work with the Hindus, didn't work with the Buddhists, didn't work with anybody that's gay, and you want to disarm us? You want to take away Americans' rights to own guns?
Navin, thank you so much for your... Thank you so much for your comments. Ellis, I'm going to let you weigh in since that was directed directly at you.
Yeah, clearly the military plays a role, but wars are only won by winning hearts and minds. I mean, look at Germany and Japan, if you want a couple of dramatic examples. I mean, those were places that we won their hearts and minds. They are some of our greatest allies in the world today. We convinced them that the path they were going down was the wrong one, and we showed them that light and freedom and democracy was better. We've got to make that same sale in the Muslim world.
But let me ask you this, Alice, since you've been on the topic of gun control there. I'm really curious because it seems like there are 3 different bills out there. You've got the NRA has one idea, you've got Comey has another idea, then you've got the Dianne Feinstein bill out there. I mean, we can't even come to a consensus on that. So, I mean, is it even possible that we could reach common ground?
I think reasonable people, if you look at the polls, something like 80-something% of Americans support some of these basic ideas, which is not allowing people on the terrorist watch list to go in and get a gun, or to keep these weapons of war, these assault weapons, out of the hands of civilians. There's no reason for regular people to have those, or to close that gun show loophole where someone without any kind of background check at all, a terrorist, a criminal, a crazy person, could go in and buy a gun. Vast majority of Americans support those common sense rules.
Amy, I want you to weigh in on this because right now the director of the FBI, James Comey, and also House Speaker Ryan are saying that they're concerned about having some of these gun control measures because they believe it could tip them off to the FBI's investigation. Your response to that?
Well, I mean, if that's what they're saying, you have to think that there's some truth to it, and it could be concerning. But what is more concerning to me than anything is that the left is pushing this gun control issue, pushing it. Why is none of the mainstream media today talking about this story from the New York Times about Obama's State Department, the revolt within Obama's State Department about our policy in Syria? That is a huge story. When has a State Department ever revolted against their own administration and all anybody can talk about is gun control? We have a problem here with the mainstream media pushing their narrative, and the American people need to wake up. And quite honestly, I think they are waking up, and that's why you see Donald Trump rising to where he is now, because they're tired of the political correctness, they're tired of the spin, they're tired of the media being in the back pocket of both parties, and they want people to talk straight to them and tell them what's going on, and they're concerned about their safety and security for themselves and their families and our nation.
Amy Kramer, thank you so much for joining us. Alice Hennigan and Dr. Zuhdi Jasser, great discussion tonight. We're obviously not going to come up with all the answers, and this debate will be ongoing. Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you.